Card King Sports and Variety Show. I am your host, the Catman, Brian Cataquet, a.k.a. the Card King. We are live on ABC's KMET, 1490am.com, your number one spot right here for news and talk on the West Coast. I thank everyone for tuning in this morning. On the telephone line, I welcome to the program a former Major League Baseball outfielder who played 9 seasons during the 1960s for the Cardinals, Cubs, and the Phillies. I welcome in Doug Clemens. Doug, Brian C., thanks so much for your time this morning.
Well, thank you very much. It's great to be with you. I'm living in the Philadelphia area now, and it's a little colder here than it is probably where you are, but I'm happy to be on the radio show with you.
Oh, this is great. Always an honor to speak with a professional athlete, Doug. So, Doug, your athletic ability was proven early on during your high school years, making all-county as a football halfback, and later going to the Syracuse University, where you landed a football scholarship at the same school where the great Jim Brown was at. Is that correct?
That's correct. I went there in 1958. Jimmy graduated in 57 and was I think a 3-time All-American in football, but also a great lacrosse player. He was 3-time All-American in lacrosse. So he had a wonderful career, and perhaps the very finest running back of all time in the NFL. And another fellow that was a classmate of mine was Ernie Davis, the great Ernie Davis, who won the Heisman Trophy in, I believe it was 1961.
Yeah, no question about it. Now, did you ever cross paths with Jimmy Brown?
I met him one time. I was being recruited, and I met Jimmy Brown in the coach's office, and the coach was the legendary Ben Schwartzwalder at that time. He took Syracuse to some of its finest years, winning the college NCAA championship against Texas in 1961. 1959, yeah.
Wow. And from what I understand, football was short-lived after you had a knee injury. However, because of your baseball ability, you got to play for Syracuse in 59 and 60 on the baseball team, right?
That's correct. I was very fortunate. I had knee surgery in high school and then still recruited for Syracuse University and more knee surgery my freshman year. And I determined that I think maybe I had a professional career in baseball. So they switched my scholarship to baseball, and I played there through my junior year and then turned professional. I was playing with my college roommate, Dave Justy, who later signed with the Houston Colt 45s, and was a star for 14 or 15 years. But I ended up signing with the St. Louis Cardinals after my junior year, playing out of the Basin League in South Dakota.
We're talking with Doug Clemens, who played during the 1960s for the Cardinals, Cubs, and Phillies, who's on the telephone line. Now, Doug, the summer of 1960, you signed with the Cardinals. A couple of questions. How did the Cardinals hear about you? Where exactly were you, if you recall, when you signed that contract, and your experience with all that information, part of your life?
Well, I was, as would be, it was my second year of playing out in the Basin League, which is a very fast college league in South Dakota. My first year out there was in Mitchell, South Dakota, which is famous for the Corn Palace of all things. And then my second year, along with Dave Justy, my college roommate, we went and played in Watertown. Because the coach we had was a former major leaguer by the name of Joe Lutz, a big gangly first baseman for the St. Louis Browns in the old days. And Joe was a bird dog, if you will, a scout. At the same time, he managed us in the Basin League, and he recommended me to the Cardinals and a fellow by the name of Joe Monahan. Incidentally, Joe Monahan had one blue eye and one brown eye, so it was the only time I ever saw a person with one of each. But I signed there in Watertown, South Dakota, and I had a 52 Chevy that Dave and I had driven out to South Dakota in for that year, and lo and behold, they sent me to Billings, Montana. Well, I had never been as far as South Dakota before, and lo and behold, now I'm going to Billings, Montana. But it was a great time. I got out to Billings, and I was hitting 327 in the Basin League. I went out to Billings, Montana for the last about 40 games, I believe, and I hit 389. So playing every day made a big difference for me.
I mean, so this is back in the summer of 1960. I mean, junior year at Syracuse, right? The Cardinals scout, was it Benny Bergman or Benny Borgman who signed you?
No, it was a guy by the name of Joe Monahan.
Joe Monahan.
Joe Monahan was the scout that came out to watch me play, and then I had to make I had to make a very difficult decision, because I was on a full ride scholarship to Syracuse and I had one more year to go, or take the opportunity to turn professional and sign with the St. Louis Cardinals. And I also had on my record a knee issue, because I had 2 knee surgeries by then. And so I talked to my parents, and my father was my high school coach in football and baseball, and I determined that I would not only turn professional, but I would certainly go back and get my degree in the 2 fall semesters that followed. And I graduated in the fall of '62 from Syracuse.
So you must have got at that time, a decent salary bonus spread over, 3-4 years during that time?
Yeah, it was over a 4-year period, I believe. I got $40,000 as an incentive to turn professional. So the first thing I did, like any young guy would do, and who did not have any money growing up, I bought a new car, and I paid for my education. So those were good things. Those were positive things, and I had an enjoyable senior, which would have been my senior year at Syracuse. But I can still remember the class of '61, the team at Syracuse. They ended up 3rd in the nation. Dave Justy led them to 3rd in the nation in the College World Series. So I'm thinking, well, here I am, and I was playing in an away game in San Antonio after I had matriculated that following year to Tulsa, Oklahoma. I was playing an away game and sitting in San Antonio thinking about my old teammates, and here they were in the College World Series, and our center fielder from the Syracuse team had also signed at the same time I did. So maybe with myself and the center fielder, we might have helped them over that little hurdle, and maybe could have won the World Series, the NCAA World Series.
Oh, yeah, indeed. So if I'm adding up these years correctly, you were about 21 years old when you broke into the big leagues, and your first stop was Billings, Montana, the Cardinals Pioneer Minor League organization, where I got to tell you, I mean, you killed it that year. I mean, you hit close to 439 games, right? I mean, almost 439 games.
Yes, and I think as it turns out, I think I went 1 for 8 the last day on a doubleheader, or I would have been over 400. There you go. Unfortunately.
Yeah. I mean, your stats in the minor league organizations, they were really solid. They were really phenomenal. So with those stats, I mean, hitting close to 400, that's what really got attention to the big show, right? With the Cardinals.
Yes, they. In fact, after the season was over in the Pioneer League, and when I was in Billings, they had me come right to the big club, the St. Louis club, and I sat on the bench for 21 days. Never got into a game until, lo and behold, the last day, Solly Hemus was our manager. Do you remember that name, Solly Hemus?
I do. Yep.
And so we were in St. Louis, and we were playing against the San Francisco Giants in San Francisco, and he put me in the last 2 innings, and I probably made the best catch I've ever made in the outfield in my life during that game. I was playing right field, which is the Sun Field in Old Candlestick Park, and the wind was blowing out, and the catcher for the San Francisco Giants hit a screaming line drive that was fading away from me, and I never used flip-down glasses before. Stan Musial showed me how to use flip-down glasses, of all things, and here I am in the outfield, and I run over, and I dive, and I make a good catch. So then I got to bat the next inning, and I had 2 strikes on me from a guy by the name of Mike McCormick, a left-hand pitcher.
Yep.
And Bill White tried to steal second base. He got thrown out. And then Salahimas pinch hits for me in the top of the 9th inning, so I don't get an official at-bat in my Major League career. That was funny in that year.
So you mentioned Stan Musial, and I wanted to ask you. So the '60 Cardinals team, you had the Stan Musial. You also had Bob Gibson. How are those? Any memories on those 2 legendary athletes?
Well, they were just great competitors. Stan was a wonderful man. It was near the end of his career. He retired in '63. I was there for his retirement. And Gibson was a great competitor. Musial hit a lifetime .331. How do you do that?
Oh, he was unbelievable.
Yeah, it was unbelievable. And Gibson, with his outstanding attitude and aggressiveness and nastiness, if you will, on the mound, he was really tough and a great competitor. We had Bill White, we had Dick Grote, we had Kurt Flood was on that team, who later challenged the reserve clause in the major leagues, as you'll recall. And so we did have a very fine club.
So then we go over to we'll go to the '61 season. Now, '61, you're playing for the Tulsa Oilers in the AA division of the Cardinals, and you did well. You had a combined 12 homers, leading that team with 28 doubles, also a batting average of .342 in 97 games. That's also the highest on the squad. So '61 at Tulsa, it was a solid year for you.
It was. I went from Class C the previous year for those 39 games that I played for the Billings, Montana, to Double A, which was quite a jump, I think. But the highlight of that year was I married my college sweetheart in Tulsa, Oklahoma.
Really?
She and her family flew out. She was from Connecticut, and they flew out, and we got married before I had to play a doubleheader that night, and it was quite the wedding. The owner of our ball club gave us the reception at the Southern Hills Country Club, which is a very prominent country club in the country, and it was lovely. It was a wonderful experience and playing well. And then I got moved to Charleston, West Virginia, as you know.
Wow, that's really nice. So great memories at Tulsa, no question. Now that same year, '61, you also played for the Charleston Marlins in the International League. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yeah, I went there from Tulsa to Charleston, and they had me hang around the Tulsa until I could qualify for the batting championship because I was leading the league in hitting, and so I waited. I stayed in Tulsa for a few more days, and then I went to Charleston, West Virginia, and a guy by the name of Phil Linz, utility fielder for the New York Yankees, actually ended up hitting .349 and to my .342, so I came in second in the league in hitting. But I went to Charleston, West Virginia, and continued playing pretty well down there. I think I hit .310 down there, if I'm not mistaken.
You did. .310 in 52 games, 10 doubles, so, a solid performance. And that team contained, if I'm not mistaken, Joe Morgan, Tim McCarver, Maxville, and those players. How did you get along with those teammates?
Well, I everything was somewhat new to me, and knowing, I knew some of the guys from spring training, but really not well. And, McCarver was just a great guy, great competitor. Joe Morgan was a journeyman third baseman, played a little bit with the Cleveland Indians at one point, and we became very good friends. And we had John Glenn, and we had Toothpick Jones, and some real guys that were veterans, if you will. And I remember playing against not Suitcase Simpson, but a big lumbering first baseman for the Rochester Red Wings at that point. And I'm trying to remember his name, but it'll come to me. I asked him one time, when you retire, how long will it be before you can collect your pension? He said, next year. which meant he was at least 45 when he was still playing at AAA level, which was kind of funny.
So then we go to 62-63. Now here you're playing for the Atlanta Crackers. This is the AAA division, and you're playing for Harry Walker. How is Harry Walker?
Harry had a philosophy. Harry was quite the talker. He had a philosophy: if you throw enough bullcrap on the wall, something's got to stick. And I'll never forget that kind of a comment from him. If you talk enough and you talk enough baseball and you try to inform guys how to play the game, something will stick in your head and you'll be a better ball player. And to that end, I think Harry was a good manager, and I enjoyed playing for him. He was a good guy, and he actually won a batting title here in Philadelphia, I believe, back in the late 40s. And then Richie Ashburn took his job the next year, and Harry was traded.
Oh, yeah, no, Harry, always respected in the baseball world. So now, yeah, you did well that year, 62-63, batting almost 300. So now your name, along with Broglio, Bobby Shantz, is remembered in the baseball history books for that three-man trade to the Cubs for Lou Brock and two others. What was your reaction going to Chicago?
Well, here I am laying in the bed in Houston, and I get a phone call about 8 or 9 o'clock in the morning, and I take the call, and Bing Devine is on the phone saying that we traded you with two other ball players, as you mentioned, Bobby Shantz and Ernie Broglio. You're going to the Chicago Cubs, so pack your stuff, and we have a car waiting for you. It was a shock. I was absolutely shocked because I was traded. My understanding is I was traded at 2 o'clock in the morning on the 16th of June. Well, the trade deadline ends at 12 o'clock midnight on June 15th. So they traded me 2 hours after the deadline, along with Bobby and Ernie. And we go to Chicago. I drive with my wife. I go home to St. Louis. We pack up our car. We drive to Chicago, which isn't that far a drive. So we get there, and obviously Chicago, they only played a day ball at that time. I get to the Chicago Cubs, and they said, get your uniform on. We need a pinch hitter. And there I am. I just drove whatever the distance was from St. Louis to Chicago. Now I'm in a uniform, and I'm pinch hitting against Ed Roebuck, I think his name was, a pitcher for the Dodgers back in the day. And I walk. So I was happy to walk, actually, after the drive and getting into the uniform, and it was a shock. And then the big name in the trade was Ernie Broglio, and the big name for, as it turned out, for the Cubs going to the Cardinals was Lou Brock, and Lou Brock became a Hall of Famer, and he had a wonderful career, and the rest is history about that. One of the guys in the trade happened to be an usher in my wedding in Tulsa, as he was a pitcher on the Tulsa Oilers when I played there in 1961. So it was quite to do. But I enjoyed Chicago. We ended up in 10th place, and the Cardinals ended up winning the World Series.
Man, but I got to tell you, Doug. I mean, you were on your way to being the Cubs, the regular right fielder. But didn't you suffer a finger injury during that time?
Interesting that you would know that. I was playing in Houston, and I slid into second base, and the shortstop for Houston came across the bag with a ball and a double play ball, and apparently I did not get my hands down fast enough as I slid into the base, and the ball ticked the end of my little finger, and it tore the joint back. And I was on the disabled list then for 30 days with that injury, and it kind of interrupted what could have been a good career for me in Chicago. Yeah.
Yeah, but also now 65 in Chicago. I mean, you became the regular right fielder. I mean, you batted close to like 405, 406 that season in spring training. Yes.
That's good information, and I knew I did well in spring training, and actually just to as we talked here, Brian, I was the center fielder, starting center fielder that year. And I just my first at bat was against the St. Louis Cardinals in Chicago, and the pitcher of all people was Bob Gibson. And my first at bat, I hit a shot off Gibson. It hit the top of the wall in Chicago in right field, and I got a double out of it. So I missed a home run off Gibson by about a foot, but that was a good feeling, to be honest with you.
Man, so then 66 comes around, and you traded to the Phillies for outfielder Wes Covington. Now, your reaction to that, Doug? Were you upset?
It was a little bit like coming home. I did not have the good year that I was hoping to have in Chicago, and Leo DeRocher was the manager of the Chicago Cubs. He was appointed that winter, and they elected to trade me and get Wes Covington. And when you're traded as a player, you always have to think, well, somebody, maybe this team doesn't want you, but somebody else does. So I came to Philadelphia, and the manager was Gene Mock, and I was notified of that trade by John Quinn. I was at Syracuse working on my, I was thinking I was working on my master's degree and teaching, substitute teaching to make some money, because we never made the big money that they're making today. So I needed a job, because by then I had children, and the rest is history. But you always want to think about wherever you're going, somebody needs you, somebody wants you. And what I did was I came to Philadelphia. I bought a home, and so my kids had some solid ground to be on, and I ended up being mainly a left-handed pinch hitter for the for the Philadelphia Phillies.
Well, with the Phillies, just looking at your record here, I mean, you tied the major league record in '66 with 3 straight pinch doubles, right? Pinch hit doubles, 5 straight pinch hits versus the Cubs in '66. So you made some records as soon as you came into the Phillies.
Well, and that was a good feeling, because they had traded me, and Leo DeRocher was the manager, and I was happy about that, and it's still a record that stands. At least I'm tied in a record, and I enjoyed it. And I also hit a pinch hit home run off Fergie Jenkins in the top of the 8th inning in Chicago. That was in 1968, however, and the Phillies had sent me down to, well, we'll get into that in a minute, but I hit a pinch hit home run off Fergie Jenkins to win a game for Chris Short when I was with the Phillies.
You did, yes, you did. Now, all right, so then 66, you're playing for the Phillies 66 to 68. Now, from what I understand, you were going to play in 69, but you decided not to. Is that right?
Well, in '69, I probably would have played again, but the Phillies were going to outright me in terms of where I was going to be performing. They had their AAA team in San Diego in '69, and they were going to outright me to that team. But by then I had 3 children and 1 in school, and I elected to retire rather than go to. I said San Diego, but it was really Eugene, Oregon was their AAA team. San Diego came into the league in '69 as a new major league ball club, and I could have maybe been picked up by the new clubs. I think it was San Diego and Montreal, I believe, came in during that period of time. But I elected. I was having some issues with my knee from football years earlier, and I elected to retire. And probably the biggest reason, Brian, was because you need 5 years in the major leagues at that time to qualify for the major league pension, which is a wonderful pension. And now today, it changed to 4 years, but today you need about a month to qualify for a small pension. But that was probably the biggest reason for me to retire. In '68, I started the year in San Diego, which was AAA at that time, prior to their getting to be a major league club the following year. And Ruley Carpenter owned the Philadelphia Phillies. And he said, Doug, if you go down there and help some of the younger guys, we'll make sure you come up. Yeah, I know you need 22 days for the pension, which was very, very important and still remains one of my sources of income, candidly, for my life. And so I went down there, helped the Phillies, had a decent year. I came back up, I believe, in August maybe, and I got about 40 days, so I had enough to qualify. So
and I had like a...
Go ahead.
Oh, go ahead.
No, I was going to say that in the interim period, I had earned a master's degree from Syracuse University, so I was either going to go into teaching and be a coach, or lo and behold, a good friend of mine asked me to come into business with him, and I became a sales manager and personnel director, and then at the end of my career, for the last 13 years, I was vice president of sales and marketing. So it turned out to be a good omen for me to get out at that time and move on with my life in another direction.
And my last question, Doug, your greatest National League thrill would have to be what?
Well, I guess probably the first home run I ever hit in the major leagues. I didn't hit many. I only hit 12. But it was off Vernon Deacon Law, who was a very good pitcher for the Pittsburgh Pirates. Unfortunately, we lost the game 17-3, and that was in St. Louis, and I hit it up on top of the deck in St. Louis. That was a thrill, pinch hitting and hitting my home run off another Hall of Famer, Fergie Jenkins. That was a thrill when I hit the home run in Chicago and won the game for Chris Short. So I've had some thrills. The big thing was playing the game. Playing the game, I love to play and enjoying my life in baseball.
Well, Doug, you did a great job. I really appreciate your time. Really an honor for me. I appreciate it.
Thank you very much, Brian. It was a pleasure for me to talk baseball with you.
Likewise, and you take care of yourself.
Okay. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
That was Doug Clemens, who played for the Cardinals, Cubs, and the Philadelphia Phillies during the 1960s. Until next week, happy collecting to all.